Good morning, everyone. This year, while we were together at the monastery at Taizé, Father Bird invited the high school seniors to prepare a collective reflection to share with our group and at our final Eucharist of the pilgrimage. He told us to think about what good works, what benediction we wanted to share with our younger members of our groups and with our chaperones. Working together from very different vantage points was powerful. Somehow, it just seemed to work.
Which is why we find ourselves standing in front of you today, not to share our benedictions from Taizé, but to share how we have individually encountered Paul's second letter to the Corinthians, or the reading from the Gospel according to Mark. We certainly do not possess the wisdom of the world, but you have raised us to think and pray and reflect, particularly on the reality of God's presence in our lives. There are many of us, so we're going to keep it short.
The Gospel tells us, "Then Jesus said to them, 'The Sabbath was made for humankind, and not humankind for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath.'" When Jesus said that the Sabbath was made for man, he was saying that the Sabbath was made to be a blessing to humanity. The Sabbath was made to serve us all and to be there for our benefit. He gave us this gift so we could all reflect and think of the relationship that we hold with our Lord Jesus Christ.
Sally Reynolds and I sat, I'm gonna move this down a little shorter. Sally Reynolds and I sat next to each other on the plane from JFK to Vienna, Austria, on our way to Taizé this year. And though most of us this morning will talk about rest and being at peace, Sally and I experienced neither on that flight. We had proactively self-medicated with NyQuil and had eye masks over our eyes, but did not get more than 30 minutes of sleep during our journey. We couldn't get comfortable, we couldn't find a way to stay warm, and even though we had blankets, sweatshirts, and our winter jackets piled on top of us. At one point, Sally even yelled, "All right, I'm done," then lifted up the armrest between us and nuzzled herself into my lap. The next morning, Sally and I couldn't stop complaining, which is breaking one of Father Bird's most prominent rules. "I'm so cold, I'm so bored, and I'm so tired" must have been said more than 20 times on our first bit of touring. In hindsight, it's pretty embarrassing. When our tour group broke for lunch, we were so sleep-deprived and cranky that we struggled to even choose a restaurant, finally picking a safer Italian place instead of diving into Austrian cuisine. When Sally, Vance, Martha, and I sat down, we started laughing hysterically. We were just so tired and the rest felt so good. Vance even shed some tears of joy. I've never seen 4 people more happy to sit down and calm down. This is what God calls us to do on the Sabbath every week, to take a look around us, stop complaining about how cold or hungry or tired we are, and be thankful for what God has given us.
When I think about Sabbath, there are a few things that come to mind. The first is a during the day rest that could be watching a movie or giving myself a time in the day to decompress. The second is a place that gives me solace in life, and that has been Camp Dudley, the camp I have gone to for the last 8 years. It gives me rest during the year and provides me time to focus on myself. Another experience with Sabbath was a midnight run I went on in New York City during February of my sophomore year. It wasn't a physical rest like the other 2 I'd mentioned, but it was absolutely a mental and emotional rest from the stresses that build up in life of this teenager. The midnight run put into perspective the blessings that God has given us and the ability He gives us to help others. EYC is also a Sabbath. It has given me the opportunity to give back, put others before myself, and be one part of a diverse community gathered together by God's love.
I pretty much have a constant one-sided dialogue going with God while I'm in my car. I pray for traffic to move along faster, forgiveness for cutting someone off, or a timely chance to make a left turn onto Route 22. This dialogical relationship extends to most areas of my life and consists mainly of me asking for things. So I've always felt a little strange about the Sabbath, the dedication of a day to rest and prayer. My version of prayer is rarely restful. However, in the years I've been going to Taizé, I've learned the value of silence. And though I initially used this silence as an opportunity to continue my endless barrage of questions, I quickly learned that a lot of prayer is waiting, listening for what God has to say. I learned that the fulfillment, the feeling of restfulness, is found in that waiting, not in the asking or the receiving. And though I often still get caught up in my inner monologues, the Sabbath serves as a reminder each week to stop rambling and listen.
The Sabbath, the period of rest, is crucial to remembering God's commandment to love our neighbors, whomever they might be. In Taizé, in the girls' room, as we were going to bed, we grew especially close, feeling closer to one another and to God. Most nights it was almost impossible to stop laughing, even though we knew it was lights out. We stayed up and told funny stories from home. On one particularly cold night, when our heater was broken, it was less funny. In fact, it was kind of miserable. Sometime in the middle of the night, I rolled over and I saw Claire jumping across the floor, cocooned in her sleeping bag. She asked to climb onto my bunk because she was cold. I was already wearing a hoodie, a scarf, and a hat, but I was so happy to have another body near. Suddenly, Johanna's snoring and Sally's crunchy teeth grinding and the Arctic climate were funny, and we fell asleep with a wonderful warmth because we knew that our friend was by our side. Only as we were forgetting our worries and resting were we able to enjoy each other and see the divine in each other.
So far in my life, I have lived basically every day being told to follow the rules. Every institution I've attended, whether it be a school, a camp, or EYC, has had its own set of rules specific to its own philosophy. And although there's of course plenty of emphasis on following these specifications, there is always some leeway, because some rules are just meant to be broken. I'm not at all trying to say we should all disrespect authority and skip school. What I mean is that we are sometimes not living to our full potential when we are so focused on the rules that we miss the point of them. In the gospel today, Abiathar, the high priest, broke a rule by sharing the bread of the presence with David and his companions. Jesus broke the rules, and specifically the Sabbath regulations, to heal the man with a withered hand. I believe there's a time when certain rules just need to be broken, and particularly if it is in the name of love, of healing, of relationship. One of the rules of EYC is participate. It is a rule open enough to invite interpretation, but at its core, it is about being together. The rule of Sabbath is about resting in the love of God. Seeing the reasons behind the rules allows us to understand why they matter and encourages us to break them when it is simply the right thing to do.
In the second reading, the Corinthians talk about how each human is like a clay jar, fragile and imperfect. They say we are afflicted, persecuted, perplexed, and struck down. But we always pick ourselves up. We always persevere. This is because Jesus made the ultimate sacrifice so that we may live our best life. He did not make that great sacrifice so that we can feel sorry for ourselves when we face hardship or slip into self-pity. Truly, once we accept that we are fragile and imperfect beings, perseverance will come easier. In about 3 months, I will be entering a completely new chapter in my life when I go off to college. Although I am terribly excited, I know that much hardship awaits as I embark on this journey to which I have no previous experience. As the letter to the Corinthians said, I will be afflicted, but not crushed. I will be perplexed, but not driven to despair. I will be persecuted, but not forsaken, and I will be struck down, but not destroyed. We all need to carry this mindset as we enter new and unknown experiences in our lives. Because no matter how hurt, confused, or alone we feel, we can always pick ourselves up and look forward, especially when we are lifted up by a community built on God's love and on God's hope and faith.
As I have the opportunity now to reflect on my time in high school, the most important lesson I learned was not in class, but during my senior internship while working in the Bronxville Elementary School art room, with the same teacher who taught me in the same classroom where my creativity bloomed. I spent each of my free periods during second semester in that room, and one day I sat with a girl named Charlotte, who was sitting alone but quietly and contently painting a masterpiece. She was extremely talented, and I was captivated. I told her how impressive it was that she could paint like that, and how I wish I could, but I'm not very good at it. She stopped and looked at me with such eyes that, far beyond her age, possessed a deep understanding within them. She said to me, "Everyone has a different painting style. It's all about the brushstrokes. I'm sure you're good, you're just judging yourself too much." It was such an insightful thing for an 8-year-old girl to say. It made me stop and take a moment. It is hard to live freely as if no one is judging you, especially yourself. But Charlotte made it sound so easy. So why had I not known this throughout high school? It's because children possess an underestimated power of positivity and innocence. They represent a saying in the Corinthians passage, "Let light shine out of darkness." The passage goes on to say that humans are exposed to bad things that do not destroy us, so we can see that the life of Jesus is visible in our own bodies. Instead of telling ourselves to look for the bright side of things, look for the positivity and light in other people. It may surprise you how incredible of an impact that will have.
Every day of our lives is a new chance, a chance to learn, to heal, to grow, to love, and to understand that and how much we are loved. God made us to honor him in all that God has created. A lot of our energy is used and encouraged to be used to strive for greatness. And of course, that can be very stressful and even relentless. We get overwhelmed in what the world brings to us and takes from us. We forget all that we've been given and can't be stripped of, the immeasurable love of God. God understands the hardships that will come our way and prepared us beforehand by giving us the Sabbath, a day of rest, meditation, prayer, and strengthening. It is the gift we often forget to unwrap, but how much better our lives will be if we do. Amen.